Good morning, everyone. My name is Alphonse Keesley, and I work with our Diversity Inclusion Planning Meeting group. And I'd like to, just to make sure that you know that it's not the product of any one person, ask those of us who are a part of that planning committee to stand up to be acknowledged. Would you please stand for a second? Continue standing if you will. We have representatives from Student Affairs, George Huey, whom you'll be hearing from a lot this morning. We also have representatives from Housing and Dining, Gay Lynn, who's right back here. And we also have representatives from our student government, Narul, who you'll also hear from later on this morning, and many others whom the Chancellor will mention from our different advisory committees. Thank you all for standing. Okay. This is the 22nd, although we just had a little conversation in the back of the room about whether or not we're going to have to keep counting each time that we do one of these summits in the fall and the spring. So it could be the 22nd or the 23rd, given that we just did one in the spring. Anyway, we'll call this the 22nd for right now, Annual Diversity Inclusion Summit. There's one other person that I really have to acknowledge publicly and have her truly acknowledged for all the work that she does in order to make this event possible. She handles all of the logistics for us regarding the summit. And she probably doesn't want me to do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. Nola Salisbury, who's standing in the back here. She pulls together all of the elements that are necessary for this event to come together as we're doing here, including, which was a recommendation from our planning committee, that we use these round tables as opposed to the theater style arrangement. We have a number of things that we're going to be doing a little differently this year that you'll hear about from George, but I don't want to slow down our program. We have a very tight schedule. I'm already at that point of making sure that we have everybody participating. What you're witnessing up here is a way for our summits to always be accessible. I'm noticing, though, you're not looking at me as much as I'd like for you to. In any case, no, to make it accessible, one of our speakers for tomorrow really did something for us as a part of the Diverse Learners Awareness Week that we held for the first time in the spring term, and it really was an important way in which for us to make our sessions most accessible to anyone who's attending. We will also have a few other events that will take place that are new this year that we're trying, and hopefully it'll pay off as well as we hope. Without further ado, however, I'd like to bring up our speaker to help us to understand what we mean by Ubuntu. I will make only one comment. Part of the reason that our planning committee settled on this particular theme for our Building the Roadmap, I am because we are, is because of the work that we're doing around the inclusive excellence process. Ubuntu seems to embrace that information, and we're very, very pleased that Professor Nyarma Sowa was willing to bring his words of wisdom related to this concept. It's an idea that he has been pursuing for a number of years, as have I, in taking our students to South Africa every May. But without further ado, let me bring to the podium Professor Nyarma Sowa, who is one of our professors in the Theater and Dance Department. Please join me in welcoming him.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for clapping. It calms my nerves. Thank you. This is an honor. Chancellor De Stefano, Vice Chancellors, City Manager and officials, deans, faculty, staff, students, and community members. Welcome to this special event. Welcome to the Diversity Summit. This year is a very special one because the organizers have decided to prioritize action. They've decided to prioritize practice as a basis for moving forward. They have chosen the term, the aphorism, the maxim, Ubuntu, as the theme for this year's summit. Ubuntu is a Zulu word which literally translates to I am because we are. It is further explained in this Zulu expression that says umuntu, ngumuntu, ngabantu. Say after me. Umuntu, ngumuntu, ngabantu. It means a person is a person through other persons. This has humanistic dimensions as well as spiritual dimensions. It has something to do with finding our personhood on the basis of belonging in the human family. It means that we cannot be humans in isolation. We are because of other people. And this idea, this notion, this philosophy is prevalent across Africa, and I believe other parts of the world. When you hear something like namaste, it speaks to that. There's so much that we can take from that. And as Bishop Desmond Tutu explains it, my humanity is caught up and is inextricably bound up with what is yours. It means we are interconnected. And there are many other African expressions that embody this idea. The idea that we are inextricably linked and that whatever I do affects you, what you do affects me. It's expressed in so many other ways. And it invites us to seek each other's welfare. I like to use a couple of analogies to explain this. I like to think of our universe as functioning, as existing because of the principle of Ubuntu, or interconnectedness. That the sun, the moon, the earth, all the eco elements work together to ensure our survival, to ensure that the universe is moving. You can also think of it in terms of the human body. I am functioning because the diverse parts of my body are working together in cooperation to ensure that I am well. It is in the interest of my lungs that my heart is well. It is in the interest of my tongue that my teeth is well. Think of it this way. Even though my teeth are strong and my tongue is soft, my teeth understand that the soft tongue is needed to get the job done. Yeah? My ribs understand that they have to cooperate with my lungs to make breathing happen. So there's this, centrality of cooperation that keeps my body functioning, that keeps your body functioning, that keeps our universe functioning. Yeah, this is key. Now, I like also to look at it from the perspective of music. We all love music. When music is good, we are happy. When music is off, we are unhappy. Imagine that all the parts of the music have to do their part, like really function in order for the music to be successful. There's no use in a part going faster just to win. There's no winners. It is about cooperation. It is about inclusion. It is about diverse parts working together to produce a common good. So what does Ubuntu mean for us in practice? Ubuntu means action. action in terms of how we live with each other, how we interact with each other, how we see each other, how we perceive each other. It is speaking to our common humanity. And the fact that we are so intertwined that we ought to look out for each other. In action, Ubuntu means respect. Ubuntu means compassion. Ubuntu means mutual support. It means empathy. It means love, generosity, and hospitality. A person who has Ubuntu manifests these values. And to the extent to which we realize these values, to that extent we have peaceful communities. It is to that extent that we have healthy communities. But these do not just show up. We have to nurture them. We have to sow seeds. Nurture the seeds so they will become part of our daily experiences. Now, it is no secret that our world is in turmoil. We have come so far as a human race in so many fronts. Technology, science, understanding the universe, going to the moon. We have done so much. And every year we invest in expanding our understanding of our universe, in expanding our possibilities for comfort. Yet, we struggle to come to terms in our human relations. We struggle to live peacefully together. We struggle to accept each other. We struggle to be kind to each other. Unfortunately, we do it to each other in the hope to get ahead, which is an illusion because we don't get anywhere. It is like the tongue being bitten by the teeth just to get away or get ahead. Or it is like the ribs suppressing the lungs just to show power. Yeah? Can you imagine a world where we understand that we belong to one human family and we work together for the common good? That we set up institutions, that we create a culture that nurtures these values. We will all be winners. Today, the lack of Ubuntu is manifests itself in so many fronts. Psycho-emotional issues. Let's say depression, suicide, low self-esteem, all those psycho-emotional or socio-cultural issues of racism, sexism, violence, poverty, inequality, bigotry, even war. These are all a result of a lack of Ubuntu or inadequate amount of Ubuntu in our cultures. I mean, it even transcends human to the environment, the way we treat our environment. This lack of understanding that we are inextricably connected makes us cause harm to each other. But at a very deep level, we understand it. We believe we know. That is why a scientist would leave Colorado and go to Australia to fight for the coral reef. Because we understand that our survival depends on the coral reef. We understand that our survival depends on the lions and elephants in Africa. We understand that we cannot insist on driving everything to extinction and expect to live. We need everything. We need each other. We even need our own human bodies to function for us to make any headway. And what do we do to get there? Where do we invest in? This is an individual call, a call to individuals. This is a call to institutions. This is a call to systems. This is a call to creating a culture of inclusive excellence, making sure everyone is thriving, making sure everyone is doing well, because to the extent to which everyone does well, to that extent we all do well. Please join in the journey. Spread the word. This ought to be the beginning of creating a culture, not just policies, but a culture, because we are all caught up in cultures. We act because of our environment. Thank you.
I mean, I'm George Huey, and after Nyarma, I mean, my goodness, that sets the tone, and that's really what we wanted for this summit, for someone to come and set the tone, to give you an idea of what we are undertaking at this particular time. And for the platform for the summit, we're going to have multiple opportunities for individuals to speak and deliver messages to you, and I'll be the one hopefully facilitating that. When I heard this morning that everything was going to be captioned, I thought, for the number of times that I may trip over my tongue or go into some kind of phase that's unrecognizable, bear with me, and I was assured that I would be protected. So, but just for openers, I should say that as Alphonse introduced the committee, I am in Student Affairs. My official title is Assistant Director for Diversity and Career Services. Nonetheless, I call it my home. That's where I'm housed. That's not what I do. That's not where I exist. I tend to be all over campus. I recognize a lot of familiar faces in the audience, and it's good to see you. And some faces I wish I were seeing that I don't see. Hopefully that'll change as well. But I'd also like to think that as I'm in this role, one of the things that I've thought about as the committee has gone through months and months of planning, I tried to get an idea for us to think about alternative history. And I just happened to overhear a conversation, maybe a year or so ago, about alternative history, and it was from a retired faculty member and one of our current staff members. They were talking about it, and I was ready to play racquetball, so I'm thinking, what's this conversation? Let me just get on the court. But as I began to think about it, in regards to the summit, I thought, you know, it's one thing to sit in the audience and to be a part of the summit, and you will be participating, not just sitting and listening. But I thought, alternative history, why would we make it a point to, in future years, look back to say, wow, you know, at the Diversity Summit, you know, we could have, we should have, there were opportunities for. We don't have to say we could have, we should have, there were opportunities for. You're a part of what's happening now, so you can make history. And I'm hoping that with the activities today and tomorrow as a part of the summit, that you will be engaged to the extent that you will be helping make history for the campus and the community here in Boulder. So with the beginning of the program now, my job is to bring up the next individuals who will speak to you and hopefully continue to deliver the message about Ubuntu. And that's going to be the chancellor, the city manager, and student representative. So if you all would come up, please, to the table, I would appreciate that. And I will introduce them, and you'll hear from them and their messages to you. And I guess I'll take this moment to just give you what most of you probably already know about the Chancellor, Phil DeStefano. You know, he's served Boulder for 42 years. And as his appointment in May of '09, you know, he joined the university in 1974 as an assistant professor of curriculum and instruction at the School of Education. And his academic career flourished as he assumed a series of academic and administrative positions, including professor, associate dean, dean, and vice chancellor, and he was appointed Provost and Executive Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs in 2001. And as the Chancellor, of course, he works closely with students, faculty, staff, alumni, donors, governing officials, and business and community leaders in extending CU's legacy as a preeminent national comprehensive research university. As a first-generation college graduate, Dr. DeStefano earned a Bachelor's of Science degree from Ohio State University and a Master's of Arts degree in English Education from West Virginia University. He holds a doctorate in humanities education from The Ohio State University, where he served as teaching and research associate. With that, I introduce you to Dr. Phil DeStefano.
Thank you, George, and good morning to all of you. I'm very grateful that you're here today, and I'm very thankful for the many contributions that you've all made to foster excellence and equity at CU. I want to begin by, again, thanking the Diversity Planning Committee. Especially, I want to thank our Vice Chancellor, Bob Boswell, Associate Vice Chancellor, Alphonse Keasley, and the entire staff of the CU Boulder Office of Diversity, Equity, and Community Engagement. And also to thank the Chancellor's four standing advisory committees on race and ethnicity, the Chancellor's Committee for Women, the Campus Accessibility Committee, and the Standing Committee on Gender and Sexuality. I want to just make a couple of brief points. The first is the exchange of ideas and knowledge among people of diverse backgrounds and perspectives is really a hallmark of education, of all of education, and one that we're committed to at the University of Colorado Boulder. And I'm reminded what Nelson Mandela said. Education is the most powerful weapon you can use to change the world. And that's why we're all here. And as most of you know, Equity and Excellence is a major initiative on our campus. We want to embrace diversity and elevate inclusivity in all our work so it becomes a part of who we are. There was a time in which we measured our diversity goals by numbers. While we still pay attention to numbers, we have moved past that to focus on how we treat people once they are here. And this is the spirit of Ubuntu that you heard earlier. We know that a healthy campus social climate is the foundation to student success. Everyone, students, faculty, staff, and visitors, should feel engaged, valued, and supported in our community. Everyone should thrive and reach their full potential at CU Boulder. And you know, our students recognized this, what we've just been talking about 12 years ago. They're ahead of us. They're always ahead of us. When they came up with the Colorado Creed. And the Creed says, in everything we do, we will act with honor, integrity, and accountability, respecting the rights of others and contributing to the greater good of the community. And you see those words in various places all around campus. And we need to recognize the importance each of us has in shaping the culture of the campus and the community by the way we interact with each other. It's the simple things we do to engage and inspire others daily that makes the difference in building a welcoming and inclusive culture. Dialogue about achieving a diverse and inclusive community cannot be limited just to this annual summit, but instead it must be part of our daily conversation. Inclusivity must be woven into the fabric and fiber and really be a part of who we are. Achieving inclusive excellence is not the job of one office, one vice chancellor, or one chancellor. It's not the sole prerogative of our student leaders or our city manager. It's everyone's moral imperative. So our work together continues today and tomorrow at the summit, but it needs to be work, as I said, that we do every day to achieve our goals as a campus and as a community. As we talk about Ubuntu, I also think about Desmond Tutu. And he said, do your little bit of good work where you are. It's those little bits of good that overwhelm the world. Thank you.
Thank you. And the next presenter is going to be Jane Brodigan, who is the city manager. And she was appointed city manager in October of 2008 and is the city's first woman manager in its 90-year history. And before joining the city of Boulder, Brodigan was city manager of Dublin, Ohio. Previously, she worked as city manager and city attorney for Loveland, Colorado, the city attorney and assistant city attorney for Greenwood Village, Colorado, and as assistant county attorney for Boulder County from 1980 to 1985. She earned her Bachelor of Arts in History from Allegheny College and a law degree from the University of Pennsylvania Law School. And as the city manager, she manages the day-to-day business of the city government, sets strategic direction to achieve the city's community sustainability goals, implements council-determined policies, coordinates community issues between departments, and supervises the work of departments. I present to you Jane Brodigan.
So I have a speech too, but I'm probably going to divert substantially from the words that I've written because I really can't follow Phil. That was really beautiful. Yeah. Okay. So the city of Boulder is a wonderful place, and yet over the last few years, I think that we in the organization, hearing and listening to our community, have begun to realize that when it comes to issues of respect, diversity, inclusion, we can do better. And I want to thank the University of Colorado at Boulder for holding this annual summit because it's always an annual reminder. The thing is that an annual reminder is sort of not good enough. We need to live it every single day. And so special thanks from me goes out to Phil DeStefano and Christina Gonzalez, who I met with about a year ago to talk about issues of inclusion and diversity in our community. And one of the things that they brought home to me is the idea that so many of us believe in this, want to live it out, and yet it has to start in your own heart and your own internal reflection. And so they were able to help us provide some resources for our management team in the city of Boulder to start reflecting on what implicit biases we have just as individuals. It's been actually a life-changing experience for me to understand these things about myself, about my coworkers, and I see that we all can do better. And when I look across our city and our nation and see the anger that exists here, I realize that a lot of people haven't done the internal work that they need to do yet. And so I actually am wanting to encourage all of you here today to join with me, our management team at the city, and your leadership here at the University of Colorado to do a lot of self-reflection about what it means to be inclusive, what it means to treat others with kindness, what it means to have people belong. I was at a conference about a year ago and saw a wonderful speaker who was talking about diversity, and I really always try to go to those because I know I need to hear and practice more. And what she said about it really hit me because I was thinking about we're doing work at the city to make our central area a much more vibrant area in the city, our Central Park. And so I was thinking, how do we make a place that everybody wants to come to? And what she said is that when you are a person, no matter who you are, when you come to a place, a public place, you want to feel like the people that planned that place already knew you were going to be there. They made it a place where you felt immediately like you belonged, like you were expected. And so that's something that I think a lot about, and I really appreciate all of the words that Niyarma had for us today about belonging and about humanity, because at the end of the day, that is so much about what it is, our interrelatedness, our belongingness. The city of Boulder right now is undertaking an effort, sort of a public effort. We have a working group that's talking about how we engage our community more effectively and more deeply. A thing that we hear is that we're not, as a city, listening hard enough, that we come to meetings with preconceived notions and we're just there to sort of hear what they have to say and then go on and do what we wanted to do. That's not okay. It's not okay for the city. It's not okay in any aspect of our lives at the university or whatever. And so that's another commitment that I'm making right now, is to listen harder to other people and understand their perspective, where they're coming from, so that we don't make preconceived notions about who they are or what they want or what's good for them. We need to listen to what they need. So that's hard work, actually. Listening is pretty hard. But again, I want to end just by thanking the university for opening my eyes a bit to all of this, and in particular, Phil and Christina, who really brought it home with some stories that they told. So thanks to you guys so much. And yeah, I am because we are.
Thank you, Jane. Appreciate those words. As we were putting together the program, we thought there's going to be representation from the institution, there's going to be representation from the city, but we also thought it very important to have a student voice included. And we have, representing the students, Colton Lyons. And Colton is your student body president of Student Affairs. And in this position, he works and fights for students in regards to voicing their opinions and concerns to administration, faculty, and staff. Colton's mother is a proud CU alum, and as a result, he's had a strong commitment and passion for the university from a very young age. I didn't realize that, Colton, okay? From this passion for CU, Colton is driven to get more students involved with student government. That way, their voices can be heard at the university, local, state levels. Colton also wants to help restore Buff pride on campus in hopes of building a strong Buffalo community. Colton is a senior majoring in political science with a minor in business analytics and hopes to go into law school following his completion of his undergraduate degree. Colton Lyons.
Thank you all for coming out today. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the Fall 2016 Diversity Inclusion Summit. CU Student Government has made it a priority to foster a safe and welcoming social climate here at CU Boulder. Our hope is that the Diversity Inclusion Summit will assist us in this goal. The summit will bring together members from City Council, business leaders, campus administrators, students, faculty, and staff to foster conversations that are crucial to achieve inclusive excellence in our community. As a community, we must embrace every student, staff, and faculty, recognizing that a truly diverse community includes individuals from a range of ethnic, regional, cultural, and economic and religious backgrounds, as well as first-generation students, persons with disabilities, students who are parents, people of different sexual and gender orientations, people of different ages and political viewpoints, and many others. We must come together and make sure that every person on this campus feels engaged, valued, and supported. This doesn't just end on campus, this extends to the Boulder community as well. The goal of the Diversity Inclusion Summit is to provide a safe space for students, faculty and staff, and community members to discuss issues that affect our diverse and inclusive community. These discussions will provide attendees applicable skills for more productive interactions across our human differences. These skills will help us come together as a university to solve the problems that face our ever-growing society. The Diversity Summit is a unique opportunity that will allow student voices not only to be heard, but most importantly, be valued on our campus and our community. Whether that be students asking questions, making remarks, or starting conversations, CU Student Government is beyond excited to see the impact students will be making this year. I'd like to thank Chancellor DeStefano, the CU Diversity Summit Planning Committee, and a special thanks to Narul, who's the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for Student Government, for all the hard work they put in planning this summit. Thank you again for coming out today. I look forward to the impactful conversations that will be taking place over the next couple of days.
Thank you for that nice round of applause for our speakers, and we're going to transition now, but thank you all very much and for your kind words and words of wisdom.
Thanks, George.
Oh, certainly. Some might say this is where it gets tricky, but it really doesn't. The program now is really pretty much designed for for you to hear from others. And as you've heard from the presenters so far, the idea is to really work collaboratively. And in that spirit, we have other speakers who are going to come up and present and give their rendition of what it means for Ubuntu to be present in their lives and the work that they do. So I would invite our next speakers to come up, Narul, Marty, Scott. Can you break that? And from what you've heard before, working collaboratively is very important, as I did indicate. And what you'll do now is to hear from those individuals who will speak about their role, their opportunities to present and have a presence on campus. And we're going to start, as we finished before with the student voice, we're going to start today, this session with the student voice. And I'm going to introduce each of them to give you a sense of their backgrounds and their bios. But we're going to begin with Narul. And Narul Madreza is a junior studying integrated physiology with a minor in business and management. And since her freshman year, Narul has been working endlessly to help mentor underrepresented students in developing a better sense of community on campus, as well as providing the resources these students need to be successful in college. Narul has been a strong student advocate in promoting campus inclusivity by developing culturally educational programming over the past 2 years. She has worked closely with the TRIO Academic Student Support Services and also the Dennis Small Cultural Center and the Center for Student Involvement. This year, she is now CU Student Government's Director of Diversity and Inclusion, specifically overseeing veteran, international, Greek, and graduate student bodies. I introduce to you Narul.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. So when I was forming my speech, I reflected a lot on my past. And I find it quite amusing because 2 years ago, if someone were to ask me to write a speech on my ideas and my thoughts on diversity and inclusion, I would have been speechless. I would not have known what to write a single trace of a paragraph because I would not have known what to write about or if there was ever an issue in the first place. And it wasn't that I lacked a sense of interest or care. I would like to think myself as a pretty sensible person, but it was because I was completely oblivious to the idea of embracing diversity. The way I viewed it, I was born and raised oftentimes being the only Asian or colored student in my class. I was used to this lack of diversity growing up, and it did not impact me, or at least I didn't think it did. And it was this same oblivion that has carried me throughout my whole entire life. There was no sense of urgency around the matter of diversity anywhere I went. And it created this expectation that feeling as if you belonged to a community, or that being different is a good trait, and that whole idea was trivial and unimportant. And so when I came to this university about 2 years ago, I assumed the same expectations because that was what I saw, that was what I heard, that was what I observed. I saw a divided campus, and it actually affected me. It made me feel uneasy. But lucky for me, I was able to escape this unhealthy expectation unscathed and rather quickly my first year. And that was by joining programs such as the Student Academic Support Services and the Core Gold Leadership Program to understand that promoting others who may not look like you, think like you, or talk like you is a vital concept. These programs promoted the idea of embracing differences and creating those spaces for open-minded students to create a deeper dialect of what it truly means to be a community. And it was so incredibly heartwarming to have these 2-hour discussions on the value of promoting others and being able to be open to different beliefs. And that when I walked out of these sessions, I saw that our social campus climate issues were more clear. And it was a struggle for me because here I was having these encouraging conversations about fostering a community and what that looks like, how that can be achieved. But the stark reality was that those ideas were not being transpired to the whole campus. And that's when I developed a deeper interest in helping reach out to our campus and our unrepresented communities as a peer, then as a mentor, and now as the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at CU Student Government. And that is why I do what I do, is I've heard enough of the draining, frustrated conversations. You see, a large portion of my job is meeting with students, hearing their stories, and I feel like I've heard it all. I hear the defeat in students' voices when they believe their differences, whether it be their race, their political thought, their culture, that those specific differences are not valued by our campus, and therefore their safety and well-being feels dismissed. I hear the frustration when students talk about leaving this campus because they sense a lack of urgency when it comes to making our campus more inclusive. Having these constant conversations make me feel apprehensive. It's not right that when students step foot onto this campus, the community has already set preconceived notions and deceitful expectations, and on top of that, not value the incredible work, vigor, passion of these students. That right there hampers students' abilities to feel valued and accepted in their own community. It hampers their ability to thrive. When I think about it, the beauty of academia is that students are exposed to a profound range of creativity, innovation, and knowledge that comes from a university experience. However, colleges carry the vital responsibility of sculpting their students' attitudes and behavior. We students are easily conditioned to what we hear and see every single day. So what happens when academia shows its students that attaining inclusivity is not a priority? That people with disabilities do not have a voice? That underrepresented students cannot hold leadership positions? Or that achieving a more accepting campus has just become a faint dream instead of an attainable goal? Over the past several months, working at CU Student Government, being in my position, I have worked with so many talented student organizations, and I've seen the growth of some blossoming relationships among these organizations. We have over hundreds of student organizations, all representing matters of race, religion, political interests, passions. But my question is, why do we not see enough collaboration among these groups? My question is, why do we not see members of one organization promote and support other organizations more often? It's small gestures such as these that carry such a profound meaning and symbolize the strength and the warmth of a community, but it's not happening on this campus, and why is that? To me, it's fairly simple. If we do not see a sense of urgency within our administration when it comes to diversity, when it comes to accepting our differences to build a stronger community, that same lack of urgency becomes very transparent to our students. We know that if we push for more collaboration within our student organizations, within our administration, more harmony within this campus altogether, we can alter the expectations of our students. We can change for the better the attitudes of our friends, of our classmates, of our coworkers, to promote inclusive excellence. We begin to believe that our diversity, our differences, when combined, make us stronger, more innovative, more productive. And that is why I'm trying my best to increase the student voice when it comes to creating initiatives, policies, strategies of how our campus can gradually achieve that diversity and inclusivity. I believe that when students know they are being heard, and when they are held accountable, they're going to perform at a higher caliber. However, I challenge our community to do two things. I urge our students to start supporting one another. You see organizations in need of a helping hand, see how you can help. Create that sense of community that although you might not be interested in their work, you are willing to promote their work because at least you know that they care about it. I think a perfect example actually occurred yesterday. In order to publicize events, most organizations, they do something called tabling. And it's important, and it's a perfect opportunity to advocate your event by handing out flyers and speaking to the public directly. So a couple days ago, I decided to make the whole executive staff over at CU Student Government take some time out of their day to table and promote the Diversity Summit. However, days leading up to the event, I felt unsure to make the whole staff take a couple hours out of their day to promote an event that they had no connection to whatsoever, no strings attached. And so I called off the tabling. But what shocked me was their overwhelming response. They were so incredibly supportive of the event, even though they had no association to the summit whatsoever. They knew I'd been working hard and that I'm passionate about this conference, and they were willing to lend a helping hand to promote my event. And I felt so incredibly grateful, my heart felt warm, and I felt proud to be part of that organization. And although I've been working with my staff for several months now, just that simple gesture of human kindness fortified a sense of community. And that right there is what we need to strive for, setting aside our differences, our personal agenda to promote unity within our student body, and hopefully create more meaningful interactions between student groups and the administration as well. And that is where I challenge those in front of me. I challenge the administration. In my realm of work, I meet with various student groups every week, and I observe phenomenal work that is being done by our students. They are pushing for conversations that make our campus think. They are working towards what I like to call innovative think tanks. They are so creative. They have so many thoughtful ideas. The students on this campus, they have a voice, and a voice that should be heard. And I urge administration to take these students and what they have to say more seriously when developing initiatives, when developing strategies that concern their social campus climate. Include students on your planning committees. At your meetings, listen to their suggestions, concerns, comments. Open up the conversation. That is how we become a campus that acknowledges value, that acknowledges the significance of differences, that recognizes the power of student voices. And that's why I'm so incredibly excited for the Diversity Summit this year, because it's that rare opportunity to create those lasting interactions and learn how our differences make Boulder stronger. So thank you, everyone, and I hope that you can continue to keep on going to the sessions at this summit, because there are a lot of great, great work that is being done. So thank you.
Wow, thank you, Narul. Wow. Just an example of students we have here on this campus and continue to do great work. But in the spirit of what you were suggesting, Narul, involvement, community, collaboration, our next presenter is from the community, and she, I know, has a dynamic message for us as well. I want to introduce to you Marty Moore. Marty's from a Colorado pioneer family, and I really have to read this to you because I just find it remarkable in terms of her background. But her great-grandparents settled in Marshall, Niwot, and Boulder in the mid-1800s, where they made a living by farming, ranching, and mining coal. Marty's dad graduated from CSU with a degree in veterinary medicine and started a practice in Los Alamos, Colorado. Marty's formative years were spent in rural Colorado training racehorses, working with her father in his practice and showing cattle. She was even homecoming queen. I don't say even, I didn't put that in there. Thank you for clarification. Marty graduated from the University of Denver with a degree in political science. While attending DU, Marty realized her differentness had a name, but she was not fully prepared or ready to admit it to herself or to her family. Shortly after college, Marty left Colorado to find a career and self-acceptance. Since then, she has been active in LGBTQ politics at the local and national level, from Seattle out west to New York City back east, and then finally back home to Colorado. Marty has been involved in many groundbreaking LGBTQ events, activities, and legislation over the past 30 years. And over the last 3 years in her role as executive director of Out Boulder County, Marty has put together a solid team of staff, diversified, and built a strong board, increased individual giving by over 200%, balanced the budget, and by working with community members has increased the number of programs and services that Out Boulder County provide to the LGBTQ and allied communities. Most notably in her tenure, Out Boulder County implemented a Trans Leadership Academy and a Trans Steering Committee that has ensured that Boulder County is one of the strongest, if not the strongest, trans community in the state of Colorado. Additionally, just this year, Out Boulder County opened a second location in Longmont to better serve all of Boulder County. Trans Ally, recently Marty received the PFLAG Boulder LGBT Activist of the Year Award and the GLBT Center of Colorado's Trans Ally of the Year Award. I present to you Marty Moore.
Thank you very much. And I wrote I was even homecoming queen because it's a little odd for me still, but I have pictures if you'd like to see. My name is Marty Moore, and I'm the executive director of Out Boulder County. My gender pronouns are she, her, and hers. To the trans people in the room and allies, I'm sure you've introduced yourself in a similar manner. To those of you who are hearing this for the first time, or have heard someone introduce themselves with their gender pronouns and didn't understand it, let me explain why I use my pronouns. I do it because I want an inclusive space where all voices matter and all people belong, and out of simple respect for trans folks everywhere. Neither you nor I can visually tell if someone is transgender, genderqueer, gender fluid, or non-binary. By leading with my pronouns, trans people know I am an ally, and it gives others in the room the freedom to go ahead and let me know their pronouns. Misgendering someone is a sure way to stop a conversation before it ever starts, and puts up barriers where none need to exist. In addition to letting you know my pronouns, I mentioned Out Boulder County. Some of you may be familiar with our organization, and some of you probably aren't. We are Boulder County's lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer community organization, providing services, programs, support, education, and trainings, along with advocacy. In my role serving the city and county of Boulder, I see it all. I see the rich who have come here to retire. I see transgender people who have attempted suicide. I see gay men who have experienced domestic violence. I receive calls about hate crimes. I comfort and provide resources for high school students whose friends have killed themselves. I talk to government officials and businesses in an effort to train them on LGBTQ issues. A few weeks ago, I visited the Boulder County Jail to see how trans people are housed and to make sure that our jail is in compliance with the relatively new rules from the Department of Justice. In all of our work, I am cognizant of my intersections and my privilege. I'm white, I'm a woman, I'm a lesbian, I'm cisgender, meaning I am not transgender, I'm a mother, I'm a grandmother, and I'm barely hanging on to middle class in Boulder County. That all being true, I work to have others who have different intersections, identities, and privileges at meetings I convene regarding policy, actions, and programs. Being a good leader means that I need to have people at the table who aren't like me, who don't have similar experiences. To that end, when I arrived at Out Boulder County, I inherited a board that was all cisgender, gay, lesbian, and bisexual people. But we claimed to be an LGBT organization. It was obvious that things needed to change. Through networking and with the board development committee, we added 3 qualified transgender people to our board within the first year. We found funding through the City of Boulder's Human Relations Commission, and I think Amelia's here today, and her commission has done groundbreaking work in the City of Boulder, to fund an individual to lead trans programming, and held a trans leadership academy that has morphed into a trans steering committee that advises me and directs me on transgender programming. Our board 3 years ago was also all white, and now that has been remedied too. Realizing, acknowledging, and embracing the intersectionality of the LGBTQ community with respect to race, class, gender, and ability has made us a stronger organization and more valuable to those we serve. I've been at the helm for 3 years, and I can tell you that stigma and the following outcome of discrimination and hate are alive and well in our community, whether that be related to sexual orientation, transgender identities, race, and/or class. Imagine being a transgender woman in Boulder. Imagine being a poor African American transgender woman in Boulder. When all those stigmatized identities collide in one person's existence, chances of success are minuscule, and the chance of violence being part of your life are very high. The violence that this specific group of people experience in our nation is unacceptable. So far this year, 23 transgender people have been reported murdered. Last year, at the end of the year, it was 21. I am on the front line of what stigma creates in our local community. Stigma is created by language and by our systems. Even for the lesbian, gay, bisexual community, who have many protections because of enacted laws, acceptance is not fully realized. As a lesbian, there are many places I still feel fear. I rarely hold my girlfriend's hand in public. And this past summer, when placing an offer on a house, as were 23 other people, the seller asked for a letter from each buyer. Do you think I led with the details about my life? I didn't. I didn't even want to list my employer, because one quick Google search tells you plenty about who I am. I've been called Militant Marty in the Times Call. Militant because I speak out for all students and that we had the gall to open a center in Longmont. We are challenging entrenched ideas by bringing visibility and services to a stigmatized group of people and community, the LGBT community in Boulder County. I, with all my privilege, was afraid of discrimination, although it's illegal in this state to deny housing based upon gender identity or sexual orientation. Laws set a standard, though. They do not provide the protection needed in daily living. Only culture change can affect that. Even in Boulder County, the LGBTQ community faces discrimination and hate. Does that mean that a lot of us aren't working for change? No, it doesn't. There are plenty of us, including many of you in this room, who are working together for change and toward inclusion for all people in all aspects of society. What more can we do to continue on this road? We can be active allies for one another. Building a roadmap into the future requires that we acknowledge that I don't know your experience and you don't know mine, and then create conversations and systems where each of our experiences and our identities are included, and in one-on-one conversations, take the opportunity to ask questions, to educate yourselves, read about other folks' experiences, travel to places to realize that your way or my way of doing things isn't the only way to do those things. When you pull a group of people together for a conversation, look at who you're inviting to the table. Are they all people who mirror your experience and your identity? If that's the case, send out additional invites. And remember that just inviting someone to the table isn't enough. Listening and being willing to adjust your assumptions, being willing to broaden your thinking, and often taking a back seat are key to creating an inclusive organization and inclusive policies. Specifically, there are a lot of things that can be done to be trans inclusive. We've talked pronouns a little. Here are a couple more ideas that will let people know you are an active ally. Look at your bathrooms. Do they say male with a picture of someone in pants? I noticed all the pantsuits in the room today. Or does it say woman with someone in a skirt? What's the point? Why? Do you start each of your speeches with, ladies and gentlemen? Why? We are leading public organizations. All are welcome, invited, belong, and are served. How about thank you all for coming? My great people, so glad to see you today. The binary is no longer an acceptable way of doing business. Acknowledge it and let your language flow. Many of us talk about inclusivity and valuing diversity. Fewer of us put that thinking into action. Here are some recent examples of action happening in our local community. The City of Boulder's HRC granted us 2 grants, one, as I've already mentioned, and one for a trans employment clinic. Out Boulder County and the Gender and Sexuality Center that Scarlett leads collaborate on many initiatives, including the Transforming Gender Symposium, and I suggest many of you attend this year. It's one of the best in the country and happens to be one of the largest. It's in March. Out Boulder County supports the work of the CU's College of Education Institute, A Queer Endeavor, which is doing life-saving and groundbreaking work that is not done anywhere else in this country in training educators and administrators in both the St. Vrain Valley School District and the Boulder Valley School District. We work with Google and other corporations on inclusivity issues. Building a roadmap looks like this: working with many groups and individuals who value diversity, who acknowledge differences, and are willing to move away from entrenched ideas of how to do things, and even question the metrics of what measuring success is. I call on all of you today to move beyond your typical views. I call on the City of Boulder to change their employee health plan so it is inclusive of transgender health care. I call on the University of Colorado to move beyond this conversation and into action. Increase funding for programs like A Queer Endeavor and other programs that are working in the trenches daily on diversity issues. The most frequent call I receive these days are from parents of elementary school children who are transgender or gender expansive. They're looking for resources and support. The times have changed. We need to quicken our steps and move forward gladly and with focus, so today's little ones are able to grow up in a society that is truly fully inclusive. I am who I am because we are. Sometimes that means I don't show my identity. Sometimes I'm the quiet person in the corner. And sometimes, like today, that means I am full-throated and present in every way. Who we are needs to continue to evolve, and working together, we can continue building a roadmap to a future that includes every identity. Thank you for your attention, thank you for your work, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Marty Moore. Oh my goodness. I really appreciate your words. Our next speaker, Scott Green, is from Google. And just yesterday, someone asked me, oh yeah, you're at the summit tomorrow, right? And I said, yeah, I'll be there. Well, they know I'd be here all day and tomorrow. But that's beside the point. But the question that came up for me from this person who was asking about the summit said, Google? Google's going to be there? What are they going to talk about? I said, oh, you get it? Just show up. So that person is here in the audience today. I'm not going to point fingers, but let me introduce Scott. Scott Green is the engineering site director for Google Boulder. The Boulder office develops software for advanced measurement technologies, GEO, Google Drive, search, and payments. Google acquired Atlas Software, SketchUp, in March of 2006. At that time, Scott was the VP of engineering. Scott joined the SketchUp team in October 2003. And prior to joining Google, Scott was Director of Technical Operations at ReturnPath and the Director of Engineering at Email Publishing / Message Media. Scott graduated from Iowa State University in 1982 with a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. I present to you Scott Green.
Thank you, George. So I think we all know that diversity is the right thing to do. My point today is that diversity is also good business, and I think that there are some implications with respect to the university also. I'm an engineer, so I build things. And what we build, who builds them, and how they build them affects our success as a endeavor. Starting with what? Product insights come from a deep understanding of the global environment. What can people afford? What features are useful? how do people buy things, what do they need. These insights are gained with local understanding and also a holistic view of people's needs. If there's a company that builds something small that only addresses a small, narrow group of people, and a company that looks at things broader because they have a profound understanding of the world, which one's going to be more successful? And diversity has a big part in informing what we build. With respect to who, we want to hire the best and the brightest. And this spans across geography, ethnicity, gender. Why would you limit yourself to a few groups? Intelligence, capabilities are spread across a wide variety of people. So narrow casting, who you hire, really limits your ability. So let's take it to a baseball team, a really simple analogy. We build a team with the best players in Peoria, or we build a team with the best players globally. Which one's going to be better? It's self-evident, but it really took a long time to figure this out, certainly in the business context. And Google, we have a long ways to go in this endeavor. One of the things that's interesting, I think it affects the university. It definitely affects Google. So we want to hire the best and the brightest. So we can go to Stanford, we can go to Harvard, we can go to MIT, and certainly awesome, right? But there's a lot of smart people that through economics don't make it to that place. And it can be as simple as not being able to get there for a college tour, or the parent never believing that the student could get there. So these economic and socioeconomic factors mean that at community colleges and at state schools, the best and the brightest are there, or a small, historically black college. The best and the brightest are everywhere. And for Google, the implication is we need to expand out who we recruit. And we need to go to a deeper, less superficial measure of attainment and try to assess the native abilities of people. Really hard problem, but that's what we need to do. And I think that at CU, the same thing can be told. Maybe thinking about community college, 2-year graduates of community college, and looking at those folks who often, just because of economics, pick a community college for 2 years, and then they go elsewhere, and could CU do a better job attracting those folks? And I think the answer is yes. Inclusion. So I want to talk a little bit about how. I talked about what, who, how. One thing about how, I'm a manager, so I'm effectively a leader within our company. And we have professors here, and you're leaders. You set the tone for your class. We have administrators, leaders, set the tone. It's very important that we understand the basics of best available information on how to be more inclusive. Many of us have taken implicit bias. One thing I would call out to the university, I think everybody who's a professor here should take implicit bias training. We've done some work that looked at effectiveness of teams and came up with psychological safety as a factor. You can Google that and look at New York Times. There's a good article on that. It's something that I actually wouldn't have assumed was a primary factor of a successful team. So we want to get the most from each person. One of the things that we deal with every day, the quietest person in our meetings is often, is just as likely to have the best idea as the loud person. And there's lots of research around this. There's a gender that can tend to monopolize discussions in the workplace. And there's stereotypes based upon roles. And certainly as students, and I have 2 daughters, they talk about projects, and they're stereotyped in those contexts of the projects. And so there's a lot of work that we can do around understanding how we build things, and how we work together. So in wrapping things up, diversity, it's really important. There's a higher level reason why it's the right thing, and then there's also a practical, it's good business. It affects what we build, who builds it, and how we build it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. At this point, we're going to transition even further into the program. And for our speakers who've just presented, thank you. And you may leave the stage, and I'll stand up. But I would also invite you at this moment to, and this is not in the program, but you've been sitting for a while. I invite you just to stand up for a moment while we go into the next phase of what's going to happen here at the summit. So take a moment.
Hello? Test. Test.
Okay.
Yep, tell them to come back, George.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We're ready to resume. So at this point, I would encourage you just take your seat at the table where you were as we go into the next phase of the Diversity Summit. I can only begin to speak about the next phase of the summit by way of suggesting that you take a moment and prepare yourself to be entertained. What you're about to experience is just that, an experience. And I guess what I'd like to do is to introduce you to Hands Up. And Hands Up was originally written and performed by Colleen Sinnette Jennings, with music composed and performed by Jody Better. And today we have Brian Casey on double bass and Tia Trent. And what you're about to experience was directed by Alphonse Keasley. But I present to you now Brian, Tia, Hands Up.
He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. People don't sing that song much today. Is it because his hand sounds odd to say, since we call on Father, Mother, God when we pray? Or is the world too slippery for our hands? Has it slipped away? I don't sing that song much because I don't know what to do with my hands. My hands have forgotten their story, their agency, their glory, their magnificent days held high above my head in praise. Almighty Oba, first wife of Shango. Almighty Oshun, Orisha of love and beauty. Almighty Imaja, mother goddess of women. To African goddesses, I sang my respect. I danced head high, body erect, to the beat of dark feet on the red earth of our youth. I danced our freedom, our love, and our truth. My hands swept and my hands gathered, harvesting what grew and mattered. Hands that clapped and hands that pounded. Hands over my ears as the rifle sounded. Hands up, we surrendered, or we felt the whip's pain. Hands up, we surrendered, thrown together, hands chained. I resisted enslavement, and oh, how I strive to break the chains, to run, to keep myself alive. Olakan, great Orisha of old, patron of all the ancient soul. Olakan, my parched lips cried. My hands were bloodied. My soul had died. Heart clenched in fear. My spirit was caged. On the ship's deck, packed like cargo, we watched as Africa disappeared. My hands covered my nakedness on the auction block. Hands tied and crossed above my head for punishment. Hands toughened and pricked by picking cotton. Hands that held and nursed and soothed my master's children. Hands that stitched freedom quilts and hung them high on a clothesline to send a runaway's message. And before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my grave and go home to my Lord and be free. I was not content in servitude. Hands that held Harriet Tubman's rifle. Hands that penned Phyllis Wheatley's verses. Hands that ran Ida B. Wells' printing press. Hands that baked pies to save Mary McLeod Bethune's school. Hands that sassed up the Charleston and pounded gospel and tickled boogie woogie on piano keys. Hands that wrote Nora Zill's manuscript. Maid's hands, stiff and bruised with pain. Hands that flew Bessie Coleman's plane. Busy, busy hands filled with yearning, learning to slowly reach across race to slowly, so slowly, touch and embrace. Willing hands of white, yellow, brown, and red, whose palms reached out, fingers spread. We clasped those hands across our chest and sang from one collected breast. Deep in my heart, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Angela Davis's hand in clenched fist held high. Fannie Lou Hamer's finger pointed at the lie. Mae Jemison's hands on a spaceship's control. Beyonce's hand waving to man in her band of gold. If you liked it, then you should have put a ring on it. Hallie's clutched her Oscar. Serena's her racket. B. Smith took an egg to a bowl edge and cracked it. Michelle Obama, fist bumps and high five. Hallelujah, we said. These hands show we have arrived. Our post-racial hands laid there idle, sans care. Soft, manicured hands stroked our long, store-bought hair. Our hands held our iPhones, sent emails and texts, so our hands went aflutter by what happened next. When young Michael Brown, hands empty, hands bare, was shot dead in the street and just left to lay there. Now we've all been caught red-handed with our hands in the cookie jar, safe in our brick houses, slick in our smart cars, drunk off the illusion that we've come so very far. We've been blinded by trinkets and drugged by the lies. Now an unarmed kid's shot and we're stunned and surprised. Now an unarmed kid's shot and every one of us dies. Do we fight? Do we cower? Take a stand or just run? Now our hands feel so empty without a knife or a gun, our mace or a Molotov, or a taser to stun. Because after 400 years, we are back to square one. And our hands we thought filled with all our fine victories now turn palms out above us, begging, please don't shoot us. Please? If the system's still broken, is this plea a mere token of a rage yet unspoken for the justice we lack? Is it defense or attack when we chant, fist up, fight back? Fist up, fight back. It's all in our hands. All we can and cannot handle. It's all in our hands. What to do with our hands.
Thank you for a great round of applause for Brian Casey, Professor, and Tia Trent. Thank you so very much for that performance. I know at this point you may want to take time just to think about what you just experienced, what you just witnessed. Wow. And you will have a chance to do that. This is also a time for you to begin to get involved, to engage. This is the time of the summit where we're going to let you express yourself among your peers, those of you sitting at the table, and we're going to shift and just have table talks. And you will see that there are topical pieces on the table, and we want you to take a look at those, and we want you to have interaction, dialogue with each other at your respective tables. And in case you're wondering just what you're going to do with that, we have several questions or just several areas that we'd like to see addressed. We want to have your voices heard. This Summit Planning Committee has worked, as I indicated before, over the months. And what we attempt to do is to have as many voices included in the conversation as possible. And as you have come today, we also have the expectation that you will also make contributions to the efforts that we will utilize going forward. And Ubuntu, I am because we are. And I hope each of you thinks about that when you're going through the dialogue at your respective tables. And what we're wanting you to do is to talk about such things as community intersectionality, to be able to engage. We want you to think about and share personal skills and abilities that you have with each other. And we'd ask you also to document those and include that information on the forms, on the papers that are in front of you, so that we'll collect those and definitely give those attention. And we may, in fact, if you should so choose to provide your information, your contact information, reach out to you at a future time so that, again, your voice can be heard in a different context. So right now, I just want you to take a look at the information on your tables, and you can see there, and I'll just go through the prompts, where you can begin to identify a skill that you have that you could share with others, a skill you would like to grow and develop, a skill I would like to learn. And then again, if you want to be identified, include your name and email, which is optional, and we will collect that information. What we'll do is to give you about 20 minutes to go through this interactive exercise, and at that point, we'll shift, and you'll have a chance to interact with the speakers who presented. Scott and Marty will be available for you to have extended dialogue conversations with them. If there were topics that came up as they spoke that you want to drill just a bit deeper, they're going to be available for you to have that conversation with them. And of course, we have the rest of the sessions this afternoon where you've looked at the program, you know which ones you've chosen to attend, and I encourage you to definitely be present and to have your voices heard at those sessions as well. So we'll begin at this moment just for you to engage in dialogue at your respective tables to answer those questions and provide some information, insight for us, and I'll let you know. even though there are more of you at some tables than others, we'll still give you about 3 more minutes to wrap up and come back together. So I'll be back to you in about 3 minutes. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to take this moment to say thank you for engaging in the activities, the table talk activities. And I know some of you are just so filled with ideas you don't want to stop. I don't want you to stop either, but for what we're doing today, we're going to bring that session to an end. And again, you can leave your comments, your skill sets on the tables where you currently sit, or if you want to take those out front and leave those at the table where we had not check-in or sign-in, but the welcoming group, you can do it there as well. What I'd also encourage you to do is to continue being the voice of diversity, inclusivity on this campus. And for that, I ask you to complete the surveys and to be sure that you give us your feedback about the summit. Any ideas, suggestions, recommendations that you have. What you've done historically has been to present information, ideas to us that's brought the summit to where it is today. And I'd like to think so far, we really have had some engaging speakers, activities that you can benefit from that are really a joy to just take in and be a part of. So I would encourage you to continue providing us that feedback, and we definitely will take it forward. I also like as a reminder to let you know that Scott and Marty will be here to, again, drill deeper, answer any questions, engage in conversation that you may have about their presentation, whether it's about the corporate side or the community side. They are more than willing to express their ideas and views with you. So if you want to meet with them, they are still here, seated at this table currently. So once we've dismissed from this section, you can find them and continue that dialogue. And of course, the rest of the sessions that you've chosen to attend, I would encourage you to do the same as you've done here. As you attend those sessions, please provide feedback, get involved, be interactive. There are a lot of folks who could not be here today who would have wanted to be here, and that's always going to be the case. But I would encourage you also to take messages back to them, your peers, your coworkers, your communities, and to continue the dialogue. The Diversity Summit is what I'm hopeful will become just a truly iconic event. I think in many respects it is already, but we want to enhance that image and enhance that feeling. So I thank you for coming today and participating as you have, and I hope you go to many sessions this afternoon, so I will see you around, and this has been pretty easy, so thank you.